And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 40th episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Maddie Allen, with ChrispyMan of Hexfire.io and special guest Mark Wilde. Welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Matty.
And looks like people have already been leaving super chats. Thank you so much. Tea Time for the super sticker, the membership, and the other $20 super chat saying Merry Christmas, Maddie. Thank you for all you do. My pleasure. And shout out to everybody in the chat. Hit the like and subscribe button. Today's show is going to be great because as always, we'll have some great analysis and theory about cryptocurrency, but also, I'm going to talk about what the PulseChain updates that were announced on Twitter from Richard Hart. I want to talk about what those mean. But first, our special guest here, Mark Wilde of secondcryptorevolution.com, has written a book that we definitely want to interview him about. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me, Matty. I appreciate it.
And so now, is this second or third book that I've seen come out on Hex?
I think it's the third one from what I read. There was those two previous ones, right? I think first one which I saw was only about Hex because there was no word of PulseChain, PulseX back then. Then the second one was mostly about Hex with some mentions of PulseChain and PulseX. So I tried to take it a step further as more information was available, and it's pretty much treating equally about Hex, PulseChain, PulseX, and some related subjects, topics.
Amazing. And so what was the process like from when you decided you wanted to write a book about these particular cryptos to when you finished the product?
Oh, wow, that's a good question, right? So the first is obviously the writing part. You just have to wake up every day and decide that you're going to put a few words in. Then sometimes, it's 3 sentences, sometimes it's 3 pages. It depends on the day and how you feel about it. Big part of the process as well is that, I finish one chapter and I start the second one, and then I delete the first one because I don't like it, or I rewrite it completely, and that keeps going on and on and on until I'm reasonably happy with what the whole message is going to be from the book. So I think this is the hardest part, right? Because it's like it's very hard to I think be objective about your own work, right? So it's sort of like, first when I write it, I think it's good. Then when I read it, I don't like it. Some other people are reading it, giving feedback, saying, "But what you're talking about is good," and I'm like, "No, it's not." And then I want to do it over again. But eventually, you have to stop, right? Once you have the content, you have to be like, "Okay, I actually don't know. Is it good enough, or is it great, or is it just bad?" It's all this author's dilemmas, I'd say, being like you're never really happy with what you created, right? It's like you have it, and you're like, "Okay, let's see." So that's the first step, the first big step, right? Then the second step, because I wrote the book in Polish initially. I'm from Poland originally, and since it's not my first book in general, it's the first one about crypto, but not the first book. I also found out that it's always better to write in your native language, right? Because no matter how good or fluent you can be in any other language, you will never use the same words, you will never use the same expressions, because it's never going to be on the level of your native language. Well, unless you were just born somewhere else, or you moved when you were, I don't know, 2 years old, and you just grew up in another country, then that's a different story. So I wrote it in Polish. Then I got it edited by a company in Poland to make sure that it's sounds and looks great in Polish. And then after that, I got it translated into English by a professional translator who was obviously fluent both in Polish and English. And then the last step was to have it corrected by an English native speaker who doesn't speak any Polish, so he can't really compare the content, right? And in the meantime, I was reading all these versions and making changes, because as it happens to be, you can give a book to translate or to edit to professional editors, translators, but they don't necessarily have any experience with crypto, right? So basically, then you find these funny words, funny expressions, think like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. I have to change it and highlight it for them, because it's not what I intended to say, right? They try to make it sound nice, but then it's not the wording which we would normally use or see on the website, Twitter, or everything else. So then I have to change it again. And then once this is done, and then you have to have it designed somehow, so it has to be prepared for whatever formats you intend to publish. So I hired another company for that. So they prepared the print version, they prepared the ebook version in various formats. There was yet another company involved which designed the cover. We're going a little bit back and forth on that, trying to make something which stands out and looks, attracts attention. That was the idea, I guess. And once all of this is done, then you just need to publish it. In this case, obviously, it's a self-published book, so just set up an account on Amazon in this case, and you just go through the process. You upload the files. They rejected it a couple of times because of some formatting issues, and so then you have to go back and back and forth and correct whatever is not working for them. And then you just set the start date, which I intended to be the 2nd of December. So it coincides with the 3rd anniversary of HEX, and it worked out. I mean, it was very last 3-4 days. I was still making some changes on Amazon, but eventually it went out. It was published on the original scheduled date. So that's the process to answer your question. All in all, it took about a year. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark, my hat's off to you. Congratulations on actually completing it. Writing is very tough. It always so much. It always sounds like it's an easy thing to do. I'm sure there's more than one person watching this stream saying, I could write a HEX book. I could write a book about crypto. And you probably could. You probably could. In fact, I'd encourage people to try, if they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that comes to mind is exactly what you said. There's a set of rules out there for writing called Heinlein's rules for writing. They're kind of the principles for success. It's very, very cool set of things, and it's basically what you said, which is you must write. If you plan to write, you got to write. And you got to finish it. And those are the two things that people have a hard time with, believe it or not. They can't get started, and then they don't finish, and then because I've done this myself too, and then the big one, which is what you had just said, is one big one is to really refrain from rewriting. What you write, because that's the thing, right? None of us want to hear our own voices. Usually, most people say that. But the final pieces are once you actually write it, you got to do what you're doing. Is you put it on the market, however it gets out there. Whether you sell it yourself, you're a self-published author, or you go with a company, go do that, right? And if you follow those simple rules, you will find maybe not financial success, but you will find a awesome amount of success because of the feeling it'll give you, for having completed something. So anyways, I applaud you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And, it looks like we have somebody in the chat here, Danny Boy, who commented, I've literally just finished Mark Wilde's book on HEX today. Amazing book.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it.
And Mark, is it already, is it out on Amazon? You mentioned digital is already out on Amazon.
Both versions are, they are live. They were live on 2nd of December, right? I think it takes about 3 weeks to get the printed version, simply because they have some system for self-publishing, which pretty much, they don't have a printed stock, or they try to predict based on current orders what they need. So I actually ordered 10 copies for promotional reason yesterday, and they say it's a 3 weeks delivery time, even in the US, right? So I think it's just because they have to actually physically print it and ship it, right?
Yeah, they do print on demand now, right? So that's how that So you're exactly right. They
Yeah.
go based on sales. Very nice. So you get yourself all set up for royalties and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's all there, but it wasn't a project focused on making money, right? I mean,
No.
I have some experience with writing and publishing before. It is extremely tough to make money on writing and publishing a book, unless you hit the bestsellers list and you stay there for whatever amount of time it takes, and you sell, I don't know, 1 million copies or something. But in this case, I haven't even hoped for that, simply because it's a niche, right? I don't even think you could sell any crypto book in 1 million copies, these days, last year or next year, because it's just not such a big subject, not such a big for many people, right? That you could just get 1 million copies out there. So no, it's not a money project. It was aimed to help the current Hex community and future PulseChain or Pulse HEX community. It was aimed to help people who are not in crypto, because the book has been written with total beginners in mind. So basically, if you have a friend or two who are like, so what is this, weird crypto, weird Bitcoin thing? That's when you can actually, buy the book and say like, look, read this, follow that, and if you still have questions, go ahead. And perhaps the last type of audience would be people who are in crypto or were in crypto for some time. Maybe they got burned by all these issues recently, by FTX, by Luna, by Celsius, by whatever else. And maybe they should actually start over. Maybe they should start understanding what they are actually doing and why the products we are so happy to promote are the ones they should actually at least start with, and not some other chasing clouds experiences, right? So that was my approach here.
I wish for you to sell 1 million books. How about that? That's my wish.
Yeah, all right. Thanks a lot.
I like that. I actually know quite a few people who are authors and self-published authors, and there's actually a huge intersection between Hex and beliefs and the folks who go into writing. Not everybody, but a lot of people who look at self-publishing and think about getting books out, they're looking for passive income. They want to get away from, and not everyone, some kind of grouping this together, but they want to get away from having to work for the man, right? Or the woman, whoever they're working for, and they want to be able to self-support. And believe it or not, a lot of them approach it like staking. And because a lot of folks, to be a successful writer, they're going to write many books, not just one. And once you get something published, even if it's 50 cents a month, you'll continue to get those royalties every month, etc. But the game has changed. Digital world's changed a lot. But anyways, there's a lot of I see a lot of crossover to Hex. You probably pick up some authors maybe along the way if they see the book.
Yeah, very very good points actually. Yeah, there's it's actually funny that you mention it, because I've been writing different kinds of things, not books initially, since I was 16 or 17, something like that. I used to work as a journalist for a while. Then I went to other areas of business, of industry. Then I came back to writing, and was ongoing for all 20 plus years, let's say. But it was also my thinking many years ago. I was working for the man, as you mentioned, and I was thinking like, one day it's not going to be my first book, maybe not my second book, but one day I will get that bestseller out there, which will, sell 1 million copies and maybe, make me, I don't know, $5 each. And then you have, I don't know, whatever, $5 million. And it worked. And the funny thing is that somewhere in the meantime, crypto came along, later on Hex came along. And, my initial goals have been met by crypto and by Hex in specific, and not by writing books. But I still decided, okay, so now I can write a book without actually worrying, whether or not it will sell, whether or not it will make money, because I got my time back. I don't work for the man anymore. And now it's just a decision. Do you want to, lay in bed all day or sit on the beach all day, or do you want to do something with this time, which hopefully will help others?
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, very, very cool and very interesting. I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad you've put it together. I haven't read the book yet, but now I have to go get it. I'll have to go on Amazon, get my digital copy. But this one I'll buy. I won't get a free one.
Thank you.
So you wrote this book with people in mind who maybe aren't knowledgeable about crypto yet to the extent that maybe we are. What are some of the ways that you see people being able to bridge like the trust gap that there is? Maybe drawing on what you wrote in the book, or maybe going, maybe the question is kind of outside of the scope, but I guess I should say I've been thinking a lot lately about how, with the FTX thing blowing up and with HEX performing flawlessly for so long, it seems like there are people who there are a lot of people in the world who wish they could trust money more, and they don't necessarily trust crypto because they don't understand it, and they don't understand it because they don't trust it.
Right. It's a loaded question, Matthew, right? And I know what you're aiming at, because I have it all the time with people I talk to who are not in crypto. I would say my approach, a little bit in the book, but it's mostly like, when I try to onboard people, is pretty much to address the fears and try to make them realize what they probably missed in a way. So it's like, oh, yeah, I heard something about this Bitcoin thing, but it's probably a scam or something. And you're like, man, that was 13 years on the market, right? And then some other things, let's say Ethereum was like, what, 6 or 7 years, like, yeah, but you keep talking about that HEX or something. I'm like, yeah, and that's 3 years. So it's not like it was something which was created a year ago or 2 years ago, and you just happen to hear about it, and that's why you think it's going to fail, because it's new and it's just not, you can't trust it because it will just fall apart. So that's my first approach, making people realize that you are actually much younger before, when it started, and that you haven't heard about this, right? So I mean, how much time do you need for crypto in general, in that case, to realize that it's here to stay, it's not going anywhere, and this is the first step, right? For me, it's kind of like, well, man, 13 years or 6 years or 3 years, depending which crypto you look at, and what are we going to have the same conversation 5 years from now, and you'll be telling me like, oh, Bitcoin is going to fall, let's say Bitcoin, right? And it's been 20 years on the market. I mean, like, well, one day you have to change your mind, or you're lost forever, right? So that's my first step, right? Then when it comes to the trust issues with all the FTX situations and so on, it depends on the level of knowledge of the people I talk to. If there is almost zero knowledge, then I'm just saying like, look, forget the headlines. I'm not trying to do the complicated stuff, like trying to explain that FTX is not crypto and it's not what crypto was designed for, because I think it's already too deep, right? They don't really get the idea here. But what I'm trying to show them, saying like, look, we've seen a lot of this before, right? And even just this year, we've seen Celsius, which was a bit of a different story, but for this kind of guys, it's the same, it's just fading, right? We've seen Luna, and they also look at the same. But then I'm trying to show them, like, look, we've seen that, let's say in 2017, 2018 with ICOs, right? So it happened before. Many people lost money. There was many, more or less high profile, let's call it bankruptcies, but then we got back, and I'm thinking, I'm trying to show it the same way now, right? Being like, well, okay, yeah, FTX was bad by no means, many people got hurt, badly hurt. Other things which I mentioned before also were bad this year, last year, and so on. But we're always coming back, right? And if you actually choose the right products, if you invest in the stuff which is promising to work properly, then there's never 100% guarantee that everything works perfectly. But yeah, where do you get that guarantee? In your full-time job where someone pays you and can fire you on the spot, in a business you are starting, and most businesses fail statistically. So sometimes I also have that feeling that people are like, oh, crypto is risky because, okay, maybe I will get hacked, or maybe I will buy the wrong thing. And you're right, yeah, maybe you will get hacked, or you'll buy the wrong thing if you don't listen to the right people. But in the same time, if you put the same money and you open a business, well, I don't remember the statistics exactly, but what is it for startups? 95% failure rate. So you know what? I would actually pick up even a random crypto and put my $10,000 in, and probably my chances are bigger that it will get somewhere in the next bull market than opening a business, because, well, statistics here, right? And since we have, good crypto and we know what crypto is and which ones we can trust, it's a no-brainer for me. That's how I'm trying to approach it to talk to people, right?
That's an excellent point.
Thanks.
Yeah. Where are people going to run into like a situation where there's no uncertainty? Like you said, with a job or a business or anything, it's a part of the nature of anything is that it has some uncertainty to it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I've got more questions, but I want ChrispyMan to get a chance to go.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what you were saying, The hardest part is, I think, is getting past the what gives crypto value discussion, right? With new people. We all struggled with that, right? I mean, that was, I think everyone struggled with that. There's probably a few that just YOLO'd completely in. You only live once and just jumped right in, didn't really think about it, but I'm pretty sure most of us thought about it. And then once you get past what gives crypto value in the first place, yeah, we have, we believe in this particular one, and this ecosystem is as having inherent value because of how they're managed and how people work with them, and it's your keys. And so I can't think of a better crypto to be in, So yeah, I think having more resources like this available to people who are curious about crypto is necessary, because there's so many people. I'm sure you've experienced it yourself. I mean, somebody asked me this week the same question. I just don't know what gives it value, and I know all these people, they're in crypto, but I don't understand it. And there's a lot of onboarding that'll have to take place in future years,
Right. Well, that's an interesting part. I actually think, when I showed the book for the first time, it was an early version. I showed it to my sister, who she has some crypto, because part of my onboarding efforts, especially for the family and close friends, some time ago was just set up a MetaMask wallet for them, send something, and watch it, right, and then see what's happening. Some of them bought more later, some of them didn't. Some of them got more interested in the topic. Some were just like, yeah, okay, I have it. I still haven't solved it. I'm taking a look what's going on. But when she read my sister read the first version, and it was early in the book when I talk a little bit about Bitcoin and mining and how it all works. She just put a comment on that, being like, I still don't understand why would anyone see value in that, right? And for me, that was a big signal that I have to rewrite that part. If a person who is not really into it, like my sister, she has her own life and she does other things in life, tells me, I understand what you're saying, but I still don't get the whole concept of where the value is coming from. Then I was like, okay, scrap that. I have to do it again and try to explain it in the simpler terms, perhaps. And these days, I would say, again, when I talk to people, it depends on the level of knowledge, right? So if the knowledge is of crypto is somewhere there, or the knowledge of general economy and money and how it's there, then I'm trying to use all the arguments which we have in all crypto, not only in HEX. So obviously the scarcity, and that people the value is kind of fake for everything, right? That why money have value, right? Well, because we agreed it does, and because you're paid, and you can spend it, and so on. So I go this route when there is some level of knowledge about this kind of things, right? On the other hand, if I talk to someone who completely seems to be not aware of what's going on around them in terms of economy, crypto, and anything else, then I'm just trying to be much simpler and sound perhaps a little bit crazy. So I'm saying, like, my question is, who cares where the volume comes from, right? If I see they don't know what they're talking about, I'm kind of like, look, You see, it was this price, now it's this price. You see, it's growing. You see, there's millions of people who are buying it at some stage and selling later, and then they get the money, right? And it's going up. Not all of them, of course, it's going up. So I'm like, do you really care where it comes from, right? And you know, very often I just find like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So how do I get started? And then we go into, okay, let's set up a MetaMask wallet. What do you want to put? $1,000, $500, $10,000? I don't care. You bought it. Don't think about it. You know, like if you're not really into it, if you don't really, you know, I find some of those people don't really try to want to understand. They are looking for excuses, right? They're blocking themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah. No knowledge, just, you know, don't care, buy, forget, you know, buy $100 to check it, you know, and see how it works for you, you know, and then maybe next time you'll buy more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think, yeah, there are some people that are just looking for reasons. I've come across some of them to not to be involved, and that's okay. You know, maybe they'll figure it out later, and maybe they have to see crypto grow for 20 years before they get involved. You know, I mean, there are.
Yep.
That's not my recommendation, but I mean, you know, that could happen. Yeah, yeah. Do you ultimately believe that community, you know, people choosing to utilize a crypto is what gives it value? Is that what your ultimate conclusion is?
I would say so. Yes, I think if we talk about all crypto in general, right? You know,
General
that all
statement,
comes
yeah.
back to that comes back to adoption, right? So, you know, I don't remember the exact numbers. It's probably a few percent of the global population right now having some sort of exposure. It's bigger in some countries, it's smaller in others. But then in general, I mean, like it seems it keeps growing, right? It varies, right? So when we see the bull market years, obviously it's bigger, right? And then when we see the bear market year or so, then, you know, a lot of people are just like, okay, forget it. So if you measure that, you know, you will get different numbers, you know, this year and different numbers, let's say in 2020, 2021. But ultimately, I mean, if we can grow with the speed we were growing, especially in the last 5 years, let's say on average, then I think where this is where all the value is going to come from as well, right? Because let's say, I don't know, just purely guessing that it's 5% this year of global population. You know, if it's 10% 5 years from now, then it's growing, right? It might be much more because we might have an accelerating curve here, I would say, because, you know, the more people know about it, the easier it will be to onboard. The more people actually get some sort of financial freedom from that, then the more people will be talking about it and so on. It might be a snowball effect, right? So it was quite slow, I think, in the first few years. Then it accelerated, I think, after 2017, maybe slow down a little bit now, but then, you know, it will be very hard to forget about this, walk away from this, and many more people will be getting on board simply because it's getting more popular.
Right. Well, you know, as you were saying about, the people who might get involved and what their interest is, and, you know, they might dig into things like the scarcity question, you know, that the crypto is more, you know, crypto in general is more scarce than fiat, you know, and so that helps the, you know, how that may hold value, right? And then, of course, the get rich idea is very much, you know, is very much fueled by speculation, right? The speculation that people are, you know, think that they're going to get rich because they see the volatility on the charts, right? But I think maybe it comes down to really that analysis of what type of people go into crypto. You have founders, you have holders, and you have speculators, right? And generally speaking, as a holder, just again, general comment about crypto, you stand to be able to weather volatility a lot better than being a trader, you know, or someone who's going to be swapping back and forth all the time. Because now, I'm sure there's somebody who'll say no, they've got it covered, and I'm sure there are people that have it covered. But in general, people tend to do this whole emotional trading thing. Like right now, I mean, You know, if anyone isn't fighting the urge to sell everything right at the moment, I don't know who they are, right? Because
Time
you look at the
lockers.
time
Time
lockers,
locker.
right? And that's where things like Hex have a utility and a value that, yes, the people who are haters will say, no, you know, that's wrong and all the rest, but it's rather true for people who stake because they can't get out of their stakes until they serve the time that they signed up for, you know. And
Well,
anyways,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You can't program the emotions out of people. And speaking as a previous psychologist, like you know, you're also, you know, you're not allowed to do it, and it wouldn't be a good thing even if you could program the emotions out of everybody. So Hex is the next best thing where you can kind of program the behavior by time locking and changing the equation of supply and demand. And that's the thing when I circle back to family members and explain again what Hex is and why I'm not so worried that the SEC is looking into me and, you know, stuff like that. You know, I have to have like real conversations these days, and it's you know, it really helps me to review what I already knew, but also to dive a little bit deeper. I'm like, you know, what is the actual mechanic that makes Hex not a Ponzi scheme, that makes crypto not a Ponzi scheme, has very much in Hex to do with the fact that you actually don't need new buyers in order for Hex to have a value. So when we talk about what gives crypto value, it is supply and demand, and that is in the here and now. But if we look at something over time, then the calculus gets a little bit more complex. And the best analogy that I can probably draw, other than the thought experiment, that yeah, you can actually see how Hex delivers on its APY that's paid in Hex. It can deliver on that whether people are trading dollars in or not. Even if not, Hex can still keep its yield, quote unquote, smart contract promise. But the analogy that I would draw is that, you know, the best thing you could have done in Bitcoin was to hold longer. And that's why HODL is such a funny meme, is because there's so much truth in it that the more you HODL, the better you could have done if it was the right thing. And it, you know, in this case, it was Bitcoin, but you had programmable money, and that's what Bitcoin proved. But until Hex came along, you didn't have provable HODL in any meaningful sense. And so that's where I really see the utility and the value, because time locking, that's the functional definition of what is money. Of the four functions of money, one is storing value over time. And so Hex literally monetizes the function of money that's not medium of exchange, not unit of account. It's store of value. So that's certainly, like, you know, something that's been on my mind is just how do we explain this to more people in ways that might appeal to them. And so another question I have for you, Mark, is we've already kind of discussed, you know, what do we say to new people to help them understand why we're so enthusiastic about Hex and these other cryptocurrencies that you've written about. Mark, what would you say today to people who have already been in Hex for a while? Like, what message do you have for people who are maybe at the intermediate level?
Oh, that's a good one as well, and I'm getting a lot of it actually. Recently, I started to get some emails from people, especially from Poland, after they realized there is a book in Polish, who bought Hex at different levels. Mostly last year, last year, 2021. Asking me, so what do I think, because the price dropped and so on. And you know, for me, it's I mean, if you held that long, then what stops you from holding longer? And it was various emails. There were people who bought almost close to the last all-time high. There were people who averaged down a little bit. So if they bought at, let's say, 40 cents, then they start to buy at 30, 20, something like that, and less than that, including recently at 3 cents. And, so they've been in HEX since at least 2021, and they are asking themselves right now, right? Like, what do I do? Because obviously it looks scary out there. We are in the middle of a bear market, or towards the end, doesn't really matter. But it looks bad, no matter how you look at that. But my approach to this is like, look at everything else in crypto, and everything lost. It lost significant percentage. So it's nothing HEX specific here, right? It's like you could say it's an all art specific, or most art specific, or it's just crypto specific, right? So I use the same arguments which I used to reassure myself in a way, being like, well, if I wake up and I see the price went down, then I look at this and be like, okay, is it because something happened with HEX? Is it because something happened with our community or whatever? And a quick glance at Twitter or anything else just shows me no, it has nothing actually happened. Just some more people sold last night or last week than the previous one, and maybe next week some more people will buy. And then you look at Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything else, and you see roughly the same thing happens, right? Sometimes it's correlated, sometimes not. But for me, this is the kind of reassurance showing, look, if I would see Bitcoin pumping, Ethereum pumping, and generally whole market going up, and HEX going down or staying, for days and weeks, then I would start questioning like what's going on, right? But there is just so many people out there watching what's happening with HEX and being active in the community that I don't think you have to watch for long. I mean, if that will happen, there will be rumors and people talking about this, 24 hours later, not 15 days later, right? And if there is an actual reason that something went wrong, then people will know about it immediately. And if there is no reason, then it will probably not happen, right? So for me, it's like the whole crypto is down, and the whole market is down. It will go up at some stage. We don't really know yet. We can speculate, but it will go up. And if everything goes up, then HEX goes up. And in that case, for me, if someone bought HEX, doesn't matter how much you paid, right? If you paid 10 cents, 20 cents, or even 50 cents in a way, if you actually held it from, let's say, worst case scenario, from 50 cents to 2.5 without being staked, then well done to you, well play, because most people would have sold at a loss a long time ago. I'm sure Matti would confirm that. And in that case, okay, if you're still not staked and you rode that train from 50 cents to 2.5, why would you sell now? Or why would you sell at 2 cents? Or even if we go to 1.5 or whatever, there's just so much virtual loss you already took that you might as well just, wait for it to rebound and at least get your money back, or better make a profit on it. So if you were like consequential for so many months, almost years now, why change your mind right now? Like if you're not staked, then just maybe stake it for whatever period you assume the next bull market will be in full swing. And if you are staked, then you can't do anything anyway. And by all means, don't emergency unstake, right? Because it doesn't make any sense. So that will be my approach to this. That's how I'm handling this as well. I have a lot of stakes which I can't touch, so basically there's nothing I can do. Even though I have that, I still look up the price every day because I'm just curious. It's part of my life, and it's just like, even if it was not stake, I would not sell at 2.5 cents, whatever I bought at various levels. But in the same time, I'm just not selling at this level because I believe that this is all temporary, and it might take, I was guessing how much it's going to take last year, and I was wrong on that. I haven't been publicizing it because I was just focusing on the book. I thought that by now, probably the situation is going to be much better than it actually is, but it was just a blind guess, like many other people are trying to guess and predict. So right now I actually don't know, right? Is it another 3 months, 6 months? Is it a year? Is it more? It depends on so many factors, but in the end it doesn't matter because it's coming back. In my opinion, it's you just have to be patient, and I've been patient long enough. What I also think people often forget is how big potential gains you could make from this game, let's call it like this, in comparison to, let's call it, a normal life, right? So for people to make the kind of money which is possible to make from Hex or crypto in general, to just work normal jobs, it takes you 10 years, 15, 20, sometimes it takes you all year or all your life, and you will still not get there, right? So, right now, if you took your shot even in 2021 and you bought Hex at, say, I don't know, 40 cents, and you're crying that a year later you're not financially free yet and it went down, I mean, okay, try that in real life. Try to get a job, and after 1 year say, you know what, now I quit because I'm financially free, I can't do anything else. So compare it to a normal life, right? I'm sure you know what I'm aiming at here. It's just like, it's not happening.
Yeah, those are great points. Yeah, and when you put it into that perspective that people holding liquid have already gone through, if they held from the top, they've already been through so much, then either they would have self-selected out and sold already, or maybe would go ahead and push through. Definitely. Yeah, that's great. I know people want to know about PulseChain. I know that's in the thumbnail. Is it okay if we divert the discussion to that temporarily, and then we can keep? Do you still have more time?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, let's change the
Awesome.
subject. Thank you very much for letting me promoting a book a little bit, and we can move on.
Yeah.
To whatever you planned.
Cool. Well, just really glad to have you here. And so my screen sharing isn't working normally right now, but I do have. So here's the screenshot of the book, and we put a link in the live chat to buy that on Amazon, and we'll probably keep coming back to it. Here's the tweet from Richard Hart that we saw from yesterday. And I'll just read it verbatim. It says, PulseChain.com update, working on mods to Lighthouse prerequisite for Beacon Chain Explorer, similar to what was done to make Prism work with our larger integers, which don't fit in their standard UIT slots. Also more AMM fix. Unless you're a dev, it's all gibberish. So yeah, that certainly does sound like gibberish to a lot of people. But basically it's more of what we've heard before, that the that the compatibility issues are not they're not done yet. And I would also really stress the importance of people remembering that there's a difference between wanting PulseChain to get launched because it's an opportunity to have low fees and a free copy of all your ERC20s ported over to a different network that you don't have to bridge to have your free copy and all that good kind of stuff. I mean, that's that's something we've all been wishing for and talking about for a lot longer than the sacrifice, which was that was done, for freedom of speech and freedom of movement, and something that doesn't entitle anybody to anything. So, that's how it works, and that's what was said. So,
yeah, I'm not that kind of dev, but my translation of the issue is they're working out how to handle big numbers. That's
yeah, exactly. That's it's a matter of you only have a certain amount of space on the blockchain to write a number, and if you're multiplying by 10,000x the amount of Ethereum that exists to make the amount of PulseChain that are going to exist, then that creates much bigger numbers to deal with, and you need basically space on the blockchain to do that, and you need lots of testing and everything to make sure all the numbers get written correctly.
Even with some of the work that I do, with the Hexfire site. In order to make some of the numbers work, I have to do special things, right? Like they're one number might be too big, and so I have to convert it in one direction versus another direction. I can't just let the system do it because each software is a little bit different. So even in the existing Ethereum chain, yeah, there's some special handling when you pull data out of it, because it doesn't handle decimals, like you said, right? So everything has to be a whole number. And as we know in the hex system, right, 100 million hearts makes up a hex.
I sacrificed 1 heart for poor pleb.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. It's the first time I know of that somebody has sent 1/100 millionth of 1 hex.
Yeah, well, you can see a bunch of stakes were made that way. I did a stake last year or this year for 10 hearts.
Okay, because you can't do 1 anymore because
oh, you can try, but yeah, no, you can't do it.
Yeah,
it's very expensive. You don't want to be staking.
Well, I think you can't. Well, you can't earn interest on it because it's already the smallest. Yeah. There's some like thing you run into when you get down that low.
Yeah, I think on our I think on hex.com in the staking panel, the actual software, the front end won't let you go below 1. Right. I don't even think it'll let you go that low, but you can interact directly. So you might be right. Maybe it's gone up to 10 or 100. I remember there was a time, unless I dreamt this, right, that Richard actually addressed how they designed it to prevent spamming attacks against the contract. It's very expensive. I mean, it's like, I don't know, maybe maybe it's $3 to start a stake today. But if you try to do something very tiny, it'll be $1,500. So nobody's spending millions of dollars to spend.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. You can see that if you ever went in and connected up with Web3 through etherscan.io, you can actually go stake directly, using the contract. And if you ever tried it, you'll look at you don't want to push confirm. That's all.
So you can send a heart for $1, but you can't stake a heart for $1.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. I can't confirm that, but I think yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and I mean, software is difficult, and people want it to be out already. People are impatient to have lower fees, to have their free copies, to have the thing that they've been waiting for already for 1.5 years. So definitely can appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah, I think it resonates with everyone that the wait is difficult. I mean, I was thinking about that today because I made some decisions last year and beginning of the year, and I was like, why did I make that decision? And I was like, oh, that's right. Because because I didn't know. I don't know any better. I don't have a crystal ball either. But we got into PulseX. I was thinking, February, March, like a lot of people.
Yeah. I thought it would be out a long time ago.
And certainly last summer, the summer before last in 21, I certainly didn't think it was going to go until 22, right? So, but I guess we're going to wait. I mean, I don't think there's any alternative but to wait.
What does Mark say about waiting?
Well, I agree with ChrispyMan here. There's no alternative to waiting right now, but we were waiting so long, and I don't actually mind waiting a little bit longer, whatever a little bit means to anyone. Coming back to that update which Richard shared recently and you showed on the screen, I'm not a dev, so for me it's gibberish. But what I really like about this community is that there was a lot of people or quite a few who immediately picked up on it, and they explained it in simpler terms on Twitter. So if you spend 5 minutes, let's say a day after that update, you could actually find out in plain terms what it actually means. But the second very important thing for me here is that we're actually getting an update on the progress, right? I think this is something I would like to see more often from Richard. Could be once a week, could it be twice a month, and even if I don't understand the exact wording, at least it's showing that there's a work being done. And it's still ongoing, and the process is still there. And I never doubted it, but it just makes me feel good. I mean, like when I woke up on that day and I just I saw that update, I was like, oh yeah, there's another step which was made, and basically something is happening. And for me, it doesn't necessarily mean we are going to have a V3 tomorrow or next week, because I actually don't know. But it makes me feel good that we are walking to the right direction, no matter what the speed of the walk is. Coming back to the timing right now, I think, look, I mean, next year is starting in a few days, pretty much. I don't know. I mean, for one part of me would like to have it out as soon as possible, even tomorrow, right? The other part of me is concerned about two things, right? One is what Richard and many other people were saying for a while. Let's make it as good as possible. Let's make it as bulletproof as possible. And for me, I mean, if it takes to wait another, I don't know, 6 months, but we will get maybe not a guarantee, but a much higher probability that we will not run into issues later, which would result in a hack, loss of funds or anything like this, then by all means wait. I mean, do your job. I mean, that's it, the message to developers, and don't worry about people screaming, I want it right now, because, well, I mean, I don't want it now if it's flawed. I want it now if it's good enough to be released, right? And the second thing is this bear market, right? So I can't see how we could launch it, let's say, next week, and everyone would suddenly become rich in 1 month, or 6 months even. We are still deep in the bear market. How deep probably is anyone's guess. How long it's going to take is probably also anyone's guess. So I actually don't think it will be a good time for launch, right? Richard said many times, he's not timing the market. It will be out when it's ready. And it might very much be true. But then the question is, like, do you really, really, really need to see these coins and your ERC20 copies right now, if nothing good probably is going to happen with them for another, let's say, I don't know, 3 to 6 months at least? Why does it matter? You'll feel better because you see it on your MetaMask saying like, oh yeah, now I have my HEX copy and everything else copy, but nothing happens. And just like, well, you will feel good maybe for a week, or for 2, and then you'll be like, okay, the price is not going up. Maybe it's going down because we're in the bear market, right? So it's kind of like, that's my thinking here, being, okay, when it's ready, it's ready. And if it coincides with a turn in trends, and we will start seeing some bullishness on the market, even better. And I might wait another, I will wait another whatever time it takes, if it all plays out for the best.
Well, I'm glad PulseChain isn't out yet. So maybe I'm in the smaller number of people who's in that category, but it's because I've been building a way for people to time lock PulseChain and PulseX. And that's something that I'm really excited to say looks like it's possibly going to be coming out even before the HEX conference in 3 weeks.
Oh, nice.
We've made tremendous progress, and no expectations, of course, but yeah, it's the value of time locking in HEX is really apparent. And I actually decided to walk my game theory back a bit so that it is not competing with HEX. So I took the incentive out, basically. And so now if you want an incentive, you can go to HEX and time lock and get your incentive for the product I'm going to be releasing. Time pays me. It'll just be, the incentive is that you get to hold longer. And if you don't understand that, then maybe you're not ready for it. But the idea is that you'll be able to time lock any ERC or PRC20 token. So I expanded it back out to all tokens, but I'll certainly be using it for PulseChain and PulseX. And the other update on that is that I think it's just going to be a flat 0.1% fee, so 0.1%, and that's to also kind of build a narrative and simulate around like the fact that the longer you stake, the cheaper it is in fees, because then you're not going to have to like restake again and pay another 0.1%. So if you staked every week for 50 weeks, then that it's the same or it's 50 times as expensive as if you were to time lock once for a year. So yeah, so do you guys have any feedback for me about that design?
ChrispyMan, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Maddie, I support you making changes to how you're doing it. You've been taking community feedback. I think that's good, right? Try to figure out what would be best for the community, how to do things. So I like that you're adjusting it for that reason. I've given you my opinion a bunch of times. I like the idea that you're putting something together that people can choose to use. To reinforce their own choices and behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Maddie, that sounds really good. I think first time we briefly chatted about it in Vegas on the after party after PulseCon. I like the ideas, right? Because it's holding's not easy. It's not for everyone. I would say most people don't really hold, because we would have way more wealthy people in crypto or after crypto, let's call it like this, if people just held whatever they bought at various times. So yeah, you're creating a tool which would help. I'm curious personally, how many people, maybe let me phrase it differently. Do you have any concerns that the tool will not be really popular because of a lack of incentive? I absolutely get your motivation, and it's great that you don't want to take away from Hex, but then how do you actually convince people, or how many you are percentage wise you are able to convince hey, you can use it, but there's nothing in it for you apart from you not selling? Because I mean, you are a psychologist, right? So I guess you have an answer to this question, because you know that the incentive works. Different incentives for different people. I'm curious to hear what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, and certainly the greatest amount of feedback that I got from people was like, "Oh, go ahead, put an incentive in there. Like that's what people need, and in order to make it popular, to get more adoption." And it's certainly something like I had like a really awesome incentive designs that basically that you could only take 10% out early if you paid a fee of 1% of the principal. So it'd be something that the particular dynamics of that would have I think would have performed well, and then basically 90% of the fee money would then go to people who didn't take their 10% out early. And so we had a great design there, but at the end of the day, there's tons of reasons. I can't go into all of them, but like there are tons of reasons why it makes a lot of sense to do the more pure thing that we envisioned in the first place. And so for example, when you get down deep into the game theory, it's like if less people understand it, then the people who time lock do even better. And then the people start to self-select to where maybe for example, in Hex, 75% of user-controlled coins are time locked. The only way it got that high is because the people who were time locking are the people who are also buying, and the people who are not time locking are the ones who are selling. So there's like a self-selection that occurs anyway, to where more and more coins want to get time locked because they're falling into strong hands that are strong because it's provable on the chain that people are holding themselves to their own promise. And so that's really interesting. And then then the other thing that gives me a lot of great hope at this, final design stage is, I mean, let's just say I've heard some whispers that some major whales are interested in this. Like, they're probably going to do it. So that gives me a lot of confidence too. It's like, to actually see some examples of people who even control the majority of coins, or are the top holder in something, that they would want, that there's more than one coin out there that has somebody like that who would want to use this, gives me faith in the idea. And then again, the point in general is that if people understand the value of time locking and they want yield, go to HEX. If people aren't ready for HEX because they think what they have is best, then they're going to need experience. They're going to need a behavioral experience to show them that time locking is good without the APY involved. Because some people are suspicious of the APY. That's how they rule out scams, like Celsius and everything else out there that's the promising passive income. HEX is clearly different than something that's a scam to any expert, but to somebody who's brand new, they wouldn't see that. And so by me offering something that doesn't have that dimension, I think helps keep a difference from HEX to where I can still lead people to HEX. But the other point is just that that there are going to be people out there, for example, people who love Ethereum. There's no easy way to time lock your Ethereum that I know of. So this is a way you can time lock your Ethereum. It'll drip back to you. You can withdraw on a weekly basis if you choose to, or you can just let it build up until you're ready to withdraw the amount of time that you've served. And so that's the percentage of coins you can take out. So that's the long-winded answer to your question.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I would say at the very least, that's a very interesting experiment, So you have your predictions and you have your models of how people are actually going to behave, and you got that feedback that some whales are interested. So it will be very fascinating to actually watch it in real life. I'm sure there will be plenty of interest. I just don't know how much, because many people, as I mentioned, probably just look for some sort of incentives. But we might be all surprised. And I mean, what you're doing, it sounds great. It looks like a really good tool, a really interesting one. I will certainly look into it because, I don't really have a problem with holding. I have years of experience holding different things, but it also doesn't change the thing that I'm tempted often, right? If I have liquid crypto and things are either going up to the level that I'm actually happy with, or I think I'm happy with, or they are going down and I'm a little bit scared, then I like 99% of the time I hold. But then there is that temptation that just a few presses of a button and you get rid of it, and maybe that's a mistake. So using that tool, even if it doesn't give any APY, well, that will prevent me from that at least, right? It would be like, okay, if I plan to sell my PulseChain, let's say in 2025 or 2028, I might as well be like, okay, you know what? I put a certain amount of it or all of it or whatever, lock it for, I don't know, a year, 3 years, 5 years, doesn't matter. And basically, well, now I can't do anything unless I want to, in some ways, penalize myself for it. So I like the idea, and best of luck with it.
Thanks. Yeah. It's as you know, the majority of the APY comes from not selling too early in crypto, and so while there's no guarantee in time pays me of like how much it'll be worth when the time is up, the guarantee is that you won't sell all of it too early. So
right.
that will be an interesting experiment for sure. Yeah. So what other so that's the last 20 minutes we've spent going over, 25 minutes on PulseChain and time pays me updates, and So what are some other topics you guys want to discuss?
I, if you don't mind me sharing, I'll share my screen real quick.
Please.
And the specific topic will be TShares. Favorite
All
topic.
right.
Who doesn't like TShares, right? Let me show you this. So I'm digging a little bit deeper, as if we need to go even more into this, right? Let me see if I can grab this window. All right. Let me know when you can see that chart up there.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, so I mean, system continues to operate as designed. We know how it's supposed to work and all the rest. So if I go to look at the advanced analytics over here, and we were talking about this max theoretical T-share chart a couple weeks ago, and in the center you can see the total T-shares by date, and that our total T-shares are coming down, have been coming down. But one of the lowest points now from even pre big payday, you know. Um, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, part of it is this is how the system works. In order to get more T-shares when you end stake, you either need to put more hex in or go out longer, right? Or both. And at some point, right, you need neither. Well, I guess if you always put more hex in, but um, you know, it's hard to keep up with those T-shares. So you see this normal kind of thing happening, particularly in the bear market, right? That we're seeing that come down, and consequently, we're also seeing the payouts go up, right? Which makes sense on a daily basis. So this has been.
The payout? What's the payout looking like right now? 6 hex per T-share?
Oh yeah, more than that. Yes. Well, of course, I'm working in numbers. So if we look at the averages, we're at 6.3 for 6 months.
Wow.
That's looking over the last 6 months. The average has been 6.3 per day, and that's a good point because that's kind of where I'm headed next. You know, and you can see the averages. You know, for the conservative model that I put together for payouts, to develop new share rates or to calculate new share rates, I use the 180 day now because it is the least volatile and of the averages I'm tracking anyways, and gets me closest to what I think today is, rather than just setting it like at 6.3. So I'm using that. So this is pretty interesting. If we go look at the staking data, so we know T-shares. Well, let's do it this way. I'll go out one more. Hold on. We know that the T-shares have a deflationary effect. Yes, more T-shares can be created at any time. So we know that there is a deflationary effect and that we're feeling it right at the moment. So we know that they're going down. If we go look at our charts and go look at stakes that have been ending, I'm going to go to 2022 here and drill down a little bit further. You can see that on our chart, the starts in terms of number of T-shares per month is always lower than the ending. So we're going down, right? Maybe switching the order of these would make better sense. But for instance, in December of 22, we're down 343,000 T-shares over this month. That's my understanding where we're at, right? So goes down, or has been going down over time. And so then when we go look at what we have for stakes coming out, I'm thinking we might see another, might lose another 25,000, 30,000 T-shares this month before the end of the month. So if we go look at just stakes that are still open from the beginning of this month. They're expected to end by the end of this month. So I just put a little date filter on here. And I say ended, no, so they haven't been ended. They're not ended. So these are open stakes. We still have 160,903 TShares that are supposed to end this month. And we've been seeing about 15%, between 10 and 15% of negative T-share growth from that, right? So we could see another 20,000 drop in terms of the number of T-shares. And what that's starting to send us towards is being permanently, or at least in the short term, over 6.3 as our base per day, which I think is a big deal. And it starts to show what we've been talking about how the system may work, and how you may see an increase of payouts. And if we see that increase in payouts, then that's probably going to attract more stakers, right? And so if it attracts more stakers, then maybe it goes down. But I don't know if the guys remember this from us talking about it before, but we had been looking at the estimated payouts going into the future.
Yeah.
And you can see this is the Hopper multiple that goes out and way out into the future. And if we overlay the actual on that, you can see we're following it pretty closely here. So these, in fact, may turn out to be very accurate. Hat off to Hopper on that. So that as we go through 23, we might be looking at gradual rise up into the 7 area by the end of 23, maybe over 7 per T-share, which should attract more stakers, because that's going to mean. And I haven't done the calculation to figure out what the APY might end up being, but that's going to drive us up at a higher number. Right?
Interesting. Yeah. Those payouts are dynamic, but they're trending up, aren't they?
Yeah. It's a little difficult to see, at times. Because when you're looking at all the things that are happening every day, we have these big outliers, and like the hacks, and the different mercy end stakes and whatnot. Hey, for fun, I threw this up last week. I think I might have showed you this already, but I threw this nuked leaderboard up because I think we have a misconception. People do. They have kind of a misconception that there's lots and lots of emergency end stakes happening, and there are some happening. That's for sure.
Because we hear about them, yeah.
Because you
hear about them on Twitter.
Yeah, and we all, and I'm as guilty about that as anybody else. But this is just dedicated to the nukes. So yeah, for earlier today on the 20th UTC, we only had 2, right? And it looks like it was still important, but
so that's in the past 2 hours.
No, that was before, because we're on 21 now, right? So
okay, so that was all day yesterday.
Yeah. But if I go back to the beginning of the month, we had 60 in December so far that have been nuked, and some of them are odd. I always say the same thing, right? So it's very hard to really decide what's happening unless somebody comes out and tells us, why they're doing it, like they're getting out of the ladder, because you can see some ladders just totally get nuked. And not all of them will be 100%, so they won't show up on this panel. But like for some reason, we did have a guy or a lady decide they wanted to take out 10 of their stakes. So maybe this was a hack. I can't really think of any other reason you would end 10 stakes unless it was a mistake, and burn 3.2 million hex.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you actually have to do that 10 times, right? Unless somebody's using a contract to do the staking, cause the problem, But so this particular person had done that. So you guys can go peruse this stuff and see what's going on with the emergency end stakes, and kind of get a better feel. But yeah, penalties continue as well, and all the rest. So yeah, system's working as we thought it would. Activity, in terms of wallets, that are moving right now, they're getting a lot of activity. Doing a little bit more analysis to really determine what that activity is all about, but beginning to see that.
Yeah. Shout out to Abit and Matt in Bali. Good to see you guys.
Abit. All right.
Speaking of getting hacked, I was really concerned this week because I was looking at some of the promotional videos that people made for this whatever giveaway is happening with Pulse Dogecoin or Pulse Bitcoin or whatever, and I saw one where the guy was showing his private seed words. So I messaged him and I was like, hey, did you know that like are you trying to do a giveaway or something yourself? And but then I saw on his Twitter, he said, like, he'd already said, I am doing a giveaway. And so he said there can only be one winner. So of course, being the game theory guy that I am, I tweeted something about it and said, well, now there can be two winners because I only took half of the Pulse Bitcoin that was being given away. I think it was like 4 Pulse Bitcoin or something. So like $8 worth is but I thought it was fun to just show that you can't make all those assumptions all at once, right? That if you put seed words on the internet, normally the first person who finds them would take all the funds. But in this case, I just wanted to prove something. So so I left the rest behind, and sure enough, somebody came and got it very quickly after that. So.
Very nice.
Kind of fun to
there's somebody
to play games like that.
Yeah, there's another Hexagon. I'm trying to remember the stream. X-Ray Vision maybe is.
He's doing it too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing a reveal, right? So he's revealing words in different orders, and then if you can catch all the words by watching the videos, you can have an opportunity there. And then so I think that's been going on. So pretty ingenious.
And I like the way Hexray is doing that for sure, because he's collaborating with other streamers, which is something that, of course, I am constantly doing and would recommend to anybody who wants to build their channel. Is to the more cross promotion you can do for free, the better. And but yeah, I saw that Hexray is doing challenges so that his fellow streamers will get more followers, not just for him, but for everybody. He's helping people achieve their goals and doing his giveaway as a motivator to people to build community, which is really nice. And that's so there's the main community building activity that I'll be doing in 2023 is coming up here in just about 3 weeks, is the HEX conference. This will be the 3rd annual hexconference.com, and same dates as the original one, January 6th through 9th. I've sent out exactly 160 invites, mostly people who have been on the channel before in the past 2 or 3 years. And so that'll be really exciting to see another 4-day conference. that'll be happening in the evenings, and of course we'll have Richard Hart as the keynote on the last day. So something to look forward to, because we don't always know when he'll be streaming in the future, but this is one of those times that we do. So people can go to hexconference.com to see all the information, and then if you want to be a speaker, you can go to my Twitter and comment on the right post. If you haven't already gotten an invite in your Twitter or Telegram DMs, and yeah, the more people that can participate, the better. And I hope both of you will be able to make it as well. I'm asking that everybody who wants to be a speaker, you need to do a very brief survey that I link to in the direct message. And what that does is it allows me to communicate some things to you, and to get some information that I need in order to organize everything efficiently. And so, yeah, I think Crispy, you already filled yours out, and I haven't looked at all the other submissions so far, but already over 40 speakers, I know.
That's cool, man.
I feel mine as well. Monty, you should have it already.
Oh, awesome. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I mean, last year we had, there were like 120 different time slots. Once we broke it down into, 20-minute blocks, hour-long blocks, and even some 5-minute spots. And there were 89 people who spoke. And so this, I'm trying to outdo myself this year, but it's going to take, it's going to take the entire community to help me out by getting the word out about the HEX conference. And, ask your favorite streamers in the live stream. Ask them, have you signed up yet for the HEX conference? And bug them about it, because, just from literally the number of people that I had to message just to put out one message is, 160, responses. So
very nice.
Help get the word out, and then, we'll definitely have something to look forward to here, January 6th through 9th. And then another thing to set your to set on your calendar is that DJ Cryptomatic will be doing his holiday special, his Christmas special,
Thursday,
where he's DJing and playing season's greetings clips from all the different members of the community that submitted their 1-minute videos to him. And so I know I submitted mine just yesterday, and the event is coming up here in 2 days from now, and it'll be, for me, in the Central Time Zone, I think it'll be 2:00 p.m. And so that'd be noon on the West Coast, and it'd be on Eastern Time, it would be 3 p.m.
Sweet. Have to be listening to some good music. That'd be good.
What part of the world are you in, Mark? Do you say?
Right now I'm in Thailand, so completely opposite to you guys. I'll have to calculate this hours. I have to take a look at this, because sometimes I'm guessing and then I'm wrong by like 2 or 3 hours. So I saw the tweets from DJ Cryptomatic. I'll just take a look and make sure that I get the timing right. And if it's not some 3 in the morning in Bangkok, then I'll be happy to take a look live as well. So let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on there. Yeah.
The specific channel that it'll be on, I'm posting now. It's twitch.tv/DJ_Cryptomatic. So everybody head over to Twitch right now and hit the subscribe button there, so that you won't miss it.
All right.
So we got, I mean, the other thing that was in Richard's update, I guess, was the still working on the AMM fix, right? So it says also more AMM fix. I think that's an interesting concept to remind people of, especially in the context of having seen these Ethereum forks kind of play out. I know I did many hours of streaming to cover Hex on Ethereum proof of work and Ethereum Fair, which are two chains that are still kind of chugging along there. But I think that the idea of having an AMM fix, so an AMM is an automated market maker, and I assume that the fix that he's talking about, Richard, is the fixer bot, which is supposed to go through and make it so that nobody can get 10,000 times cheaper coins that are copied over from the liquidity pools in Uniswap, basically.
Right.
And we saw not only Richard predict perfectly, that would be a problem, for any kind of fork of Ethereum. But we actually saw it play out with these two proof of work forks. And, unfortunately, I was not one of the ones who benefited from that. But I still found it extremely fascinating. And so I was probably one of the few people who was covering it who wasn't personally gonna gain significantly from from a quick flip. And I ended up with the hex that I acquired on those two side chains, just ended up staking it. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. So Richard saying that that there needs to be more of a fix there is I think it's a good reminder that that's an important topic. And the reason why you would want the price to get fixed is because then certainly in an adversarial situation, and this goes to game theory, you don't want somebody to be able to come along and pick up tons of cheap coins, because then they have more coins to sell and they don't care if the price goes up very much. They could sell even with the price going down and they could make a huge profit. And so even though you only have maybe 5% of the supply of any given ERC20 token is sitting on a Uniswap AMM on a decentralized exchange that would get copied over and would be incorrectly priced on PulseChain due to the adjustment of the number of the 10,000x greater supply of PulseChain tokens. I think that it's worth fixing, and I also would remind people that the best solution that Richard had spoken about publicly was that really the best way to attack that problem is to have the bot scale in over time. And that's what we know about anything, is that if you dollar cost average in over time, you're going to get a better price no matter what the market's doing. Is that something that you guys have ever practiced or found helpful? The idea of dollar cost averaging or scaling in over time, like the automated market maker bot is going to do for PulseChain?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by it DCAing, and but of course, I DCA.
Yeah. So just to explain that, it is basically the idea that we had heard Richard speak about publicly. There's a pretty advanced concept I would say is this idea that people could game the system of PulseChain by creating an ERC20 token that looks like all the other ones. But they would be doing that in order to simply extract cheap or free PulseChain coins the fixer bot would be unknowingly given to people. And so so the solution to that problem is for the AMM bot to just pretty much, and I'm not saying that Richard has described all of this. Part of this is just my putting the pieces together. Is it makes sense that that you would try to go about solving that problem by scaling it over time.
Got it. Got it. That's what you meant by DCA. Yeah.
Well, personally, yes, I have experience with DCAing, obviously, especially to HEX. I think I bought a certain amount of HEX initially. It was March 2020. Then I think I was DCAing a bit on the way up in 2020 with whatever the prices were. And I was also DCAing on the way down recently. Recently it's for almost a year now, I'd say. So started probably around 30 cents, then around 10 cents, and most recently I think it was 5, 4, 3, something like that. So yeah, I mean, you explained pretty well the technicalities of AMM fixer bots, and I think whatever we can get in that system to make sure that the system is not gamed in the wrong way, and by extension helps all of us, then great. Yeah, I'm all up for it. So the better it works, like I mentioned before, if it takes time to get all these details right, I'm willing to wait. I just want to make sure it's as good as possible in all kinds of ways, from all kinds of angles, with no silly risks. And I'm pretty much confident that Richard has it covered in a way that he can see. I think he can see all kinds of angles and problems we could potentially experience, and we could see that in HEX as well, right? And I also think it's not only on the design level, right? Obviously, HEX is designed in a way it does perfectly what it's supposed to do, and so on. We all know that, but at the same time, recently I saw some some tweets, some comments somewhere, just it was mostly about this SEC FUD and so on, and what's going to happen if this, what's going to happen if that. My immediate reaction, having followed Richard for quite a few years now and being in HEX for a few years, was and you really think that Richard didn't think about this before? I mean, HEX was designed to be, let's call it, SEC proof. But in the same time, do you think he never expected that something will happen? That maybe, something with the influencers, maybe something with HEX itself, in a way that SEC will be looking at least? I'm like, of course he did. I mean, he and his lawyers or whatever kind of team he's working with, I'm pretty much sure they were analyzing this, long before HEX was actually born in a way, right? So, he predicts things, or at least he's playing out all kinds of scenarios. And that's why maybe we also see some of these delays in PulseChain being okay, what if this happens? Or what if this? What if we prove that? What if we don't improve that, right? And then based on these hypothetical scenarios, I think they play it out and they make a decision, whether or not to improve something, change something or not. That's how I see Richard, not in a way that, everything he says is just golden and perfect, because I'm not that kind of a guy. But, we've seen a lot of moves, and we've seen a lot of, design features, and we've seen a lot of, marketing plays and all kinds of other actions, which clearly show that, none of it is a coincidence. None of it is just a random gibberish. I'd say it's all, I think it's all according to the plan. And, if one plan doesn't work or doesn't seem to be working the way he initially expected, so there was already 3 other plans prepared in case what happens when the first one doesn't work, right? So that's how I see this whole ecosystem. And that's why I think, in a way, we are in safe hands, because it's not like suddenly something really bad is going to happen. And we're, oh my God, no one really thought about this before. I just don't see it that way.
Yeah. I wish somebody would come along and give me some new FUD to deal with, I just haven't heard anything new. And the fact that HEX is decentralized, it's really, think exemplified by us here. You know, Mark wrote a book. ChrispyMan created an analytics website, and you know, I've been streaming for 108 weeks. None of us are getting paid by by the founder of Hex to do this.
Actually, I'm not getting paid by anybody.
Correct.
Same here. And actually, in many cases, we spend our own money on that, right? I mean, like, obviously, you know, well, I don't know what it takes to be to have a professional studio for streaming like you guys, but in the same time, I'm sure you had to invest a lot of money to make it happen, to look like you look, to sound like you look, like you sound. In my case, obviously, the whole book process, it's all, you know, my own investment, right? There is no marketing budget from Hex or anything else, and basically I just do it because I think that's the right thing to do, and that's it. So, and I think many of us, including you, are exactly the same. You know, no one's getting any, you know, no one got told here, hey, you know, make a stream and I pay you, you know, $5,000 a month, or we'll write that book and it's a $50,000 contract. I didn't have any contract, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. So that's how it works.
Yes, absolutely.
That's it.
So yeah, so I mean the you know, the FUD should be running high, you know, when we're at the bottom of the bear, and you know, there's, you know, Hex is still doing what it does best. And the thing that I've really been impressed by is how many new users seem to still be coming into the mix. You know, like, even though Hex doesn't need new people to come in, and even though, like, in some ways it's a horrible advertisement to say, hey, look, you know, the price is down 95%. Most people would you know, be turning away from that. But in fact, it seems like there are more people coming into Hex than are leaving. And that's pretty remarkable too. The Hex community continues to grow, and the people who are staked seem to be sticking around and not leaving Twitter, not leaving YouTube. The numbers are way more impressive than the other cryptos that I'm looking at. I'm seeing a number of other crypto influencers who are not getting near the numbers that they used to, and it's because they've burnt their audience. Their audience was for sale. They sold their audience got burned, and now their audience doesn't like them anymore.
Well, here's an alternate view of that though too, right? I think that maybe that's part of it for sure, right? Because some people do get pretty pissed, but it's also the bear, and attention's just down, you know, overall in crypto. But you know what's cool about it, and I think it's because makes me think about our community. Not all the people that are complaining every day that there's a bear. I'm talking about the staking community that's out there. We had to subscribe to this idea of delayed gratification, and delayed gratification doesn't change a whole lot when market's down, right? I mean, it does. Of course, we're all affected by the values and the price and all that, but for most people, same as last week, same as last month, same as last year. Yes, the price looks different, but you know, so where would we go? We were all super excited and wanted to be involved in 21, 22, right? So 23, man, we kick off with a bang. So I agree with you. We have so much engagement. It does look so weird though, right? I mean, it's a good weird, but like you know, how can all these people be so interested in this? You know? I mean, I guess I imagine people looking into our community think that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that might be the case as well. Like what you just said, it kind of caught my attention. It's something I briefly mentioned before. So I'm like, okay, we are 95% down, and let's say I would lose all hope and let's say I would lose, I would have everything liquid in Hex. What's my alternative, really? Right? I could actually sell if I had all this liquids at the profit in comparison to what I bought it for 2 or 3 years ago. I could take certain amount of money out of it, and without giving any specific numbers, but let's just make a a mental exercise here. Let's say I get out of it $1 million, and now what? The whole crypto market is where it is. If I want to get back to crypto, I mean, which one? Like if we go up again, then we go up, and Hex is going to go up. If I want to leave crypto altogether, then what? Am I going to open a business, like I mentioned before, and have a 95% failure rate statistically? Doesn't make any sense, right? So even if I really was like pissed off and annoyed and depressed and whatever, and I'm not, what could I do, right? Or you could take that money, let's say $1 million, and with a real inflation probably running way above 10%, even living a relatively humble life, in a few years you're out of money, you haven't created that business which would have failed, you left crypto. There is no feasible alternative for me right now, but just staying in the community I believe in, staying with the products and projects I believe in. Because and it's not like being a maximalist, even though I consider myself being a Richard Hart's ecosystem maximalist. It's about, okay, show me an alternative way which would have bigger chances for success than this, or less risk in that case, with still significant gains available. I just don't see it. Show it to me, I might even consider, but it would be a very, very hard sell, very tough sell, because I just, I was looking. I mean, I was looking not in a way that I doubted it, but, I like to keep open mind. So I like to look at different alternatives, options in crypto and outside of crypto. And every single time it's like, nah, that's not going to work, because I've been here long enough. I've seen enough things. I've seen enough bad things happening to a lot of good people. And I just don't see where else I could go inside or outside of crypto and have a bigger chance of success or less risk of not being successful. So I'm here to stay.
Well, your points are all good points, Mark. You look at how most people come in to crypto. So I think the ones that are going to get moved out. So we always call this kind of like an IQ test. The HEX contract and being involved in the community. Yeah, that's a little self-serving. I like it though. I like it. It's a little bit of an IQ test. But the folks who come in and leave, they're following that normal process with what they're doing. Is they're buying tops and selling bottoms, And so I heard about it earlier than 17, but 2018, people bought the tops, they sold the bottoms, right? 2021, 22, they bought the tops, they sold the bottoms. So those people move on out, right? And so, so you see it, you do see that. But yeah, I'm right there with you that, if you already push the button, you get beyond that and you kind of like push the I believe button. I believe that crypto can be valuable. And now you've done the analysis to figure out which which cryptos you want to be in. Then why would you lose position at exactly the wrong time? Right? This is not the time to lose position. But that's not financial advice. People do the hell you want. But
sure.
But still, right? That's what I'm thinking about myself. Like this isn't the time. This isn't the time to dump everything.
For me, what you just mentioned was really interesting because it's very much true that a lot of people are buying the tops and selling the bottoms. And even when I was in my beginnings in crypto, that was early 2017. So I experienced that big run towards the end of 2017, beginning 2018. Then I experienced going all the way down, still learning, probably not taking any profits. But in the same time, my thinking about all these people who did that before, maybe they will do that again. I mean, buying the tops and selling the bottoms, for me, just doesn't make any logical sense, right? If you put $1,000 into something and now it's worth 100, you might as well just wait and hope that at least you will get what you put back in. Why would you just run away with your $100 back? Like what are you going to do with it really? And obviously there's a scale here, but it doesn't matter. If you put $100,000 and now it's worth 10K, I mean, like, what are you going to do with this 10K? Pay 2 months rent? I mean, like, well, if you have no other choice because that's your personal situation, then that's a different story. But then maybe, you put more money than you should have in crypto in the beginning. We're going to different discussion here, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? If you already virtually lost 90%, you might as well wait until you get back, because you haven't really lost until you sold, right? So stay with it.
Well, yeah, the amount of conviction that you guys have is great, and that's the same way that I feel about these things. I forgot what my next point was going to be. Sorry.
No, it's easy to forget. I looked at the calendar, and I was just looking at price run up in 21 versus versus where we are today. We forget just how quickly everything happened, and just because it doesn't matter what asset that you have, just because it's at a price, it's not your price. You don't get to control that, right? I mean, you partake in the environment, but I mean, just because something was at a high, don't assume it'll always stay there. I think that's the big lesson. Right. No, to assume that when somebody tells you that volatility is high, and that 90% dips are in the game, that they really are in the game. Don't assume this time is different. Well, nobody knows what will happen. But I mean, I think the more cycles you go through, the more practice you get. But it's every 4 years, and there's some expensive lessons. Take you because I mean, here some of us we're on our second, some people have been on thirds, maybe some are on the fourth cycle, I guess depending on how you want to count the cycles, but, it's not unexpected that with high volatility, we'll see price volatility, right?
For sure.
So one of the points in the comments, somebody's saying the lower the hex price goes, the more people I see bragging about still being up 10x or more. Makes me not want to buy at all, knowing how many people bought early enough to have endless yield to dump. I was concerned about that. Once upon a time, I would say for sure, trying to just calculate, how much yield is going to be coming out in the future. Hex is one of the first things that has, well, the first thing that has a chart of future market supply. So that can be calculated, and the website that Crispy made does the best job of looking forward and seeing how much people have coming out. I think I would think in general that most people who are bragging about still being up 10x are people who might be time locked for an average of 6.5 or more years. And so it's still your decision to know when you want to buy, what you want to buy, and all that good kind of stuff. But I think that the statistics, should speak for themselves, and I would encourage people to do that math, even when I do it mentally. I would say the way that I identify my own FUD, that's just an emotion and not based on a fact, is that that I would have seen Hex crash a lot harder and a lot sooner than it did, than it has, based on that. So if your thesis is that that people are going to end their stakes and then not restake, that's something that is provable on chain. So it's something that people can look at. What would you guys say to that point there?
Well, I think there's some misnomers making the assumption that there's endless yield. So first off, or misunderstanding it completely. In HEX, my yield is not, it's not unlimited. So what does that mean? Well, the way the system's designed, it really is designed to age stakers out. And sure, I mean, you can make a big argument that 15 years would be a long time to wait if everybody staked for 15 years, all of their HEX in the beginning. But they didn't do that. It's not what happened. You can go actually look at the information that's there. Our realized inflation rate, what actually comes out and goes into wallets, is like 2% a year, less than 2% a year. So from an inflation perspective, we're not seeing, like these, hugely gross increased numbers, right? And then, you know what? I know, yes, getting in earlier is better, probably in many things that are going to do well. But it doesn't mean that the system's utility isn't there, and that you still don't have that opportunity to participate and to utilize it. Because all my stakes, and I've had quite a few, because I did like some sort of weird scatter diagram when I did my stuff, man. As I felt like it, I staked. And so maybe I've ended 15 or 20 stakes, 36 since the beginning of HEX. And I can't get those TShares back. I paid 60 cents for most of those. Right? I can't get those TShares back. And if I want to get them back now, I got to pay $800. So somebody else now reaps whatever the reward is for that going away, and that's how the system kind of feeds itself and puts it in. The other thing is looking at the ROIs and the APYs. We also see that the APY comes down over time if if there are more stakers, but the TShares are coming down, so there's opportunity there too. To be able to get stakes at an earlier point and kind of, grow your own personal yield. But after 6 years, we're going to see like a recycling, right, of so many of the TShares. So anyways, I get the idea that being earlier would have been a lot better, because I certainly say that myself about a lot of things. I get that, but I wouldn't just totally discount HEX based on that, so it's just not worth doing. I'd look into it a little bit further. Meat on the bone. Yep.
If I could, I would like to add something to this. That obviously all of these are very valid points, especially about staking and yield, because that's what HEX was designed for, right? But in the same time, if you look at HEX without the staking component whatsoever, so it gets more comparable to many other crypto out there, let's say. And it's a perpetual thing for me in a way, right? So, okay, some of us were early or earlier than the others. And maybe, let's say, okay, let's give an example. Maybe I bought for way less than 1 cent. And then I made certain gains in certain amount of years. But then maybe I sold it all, which is a concern here because I dumped maybe a lot of a big buck on others' heads. But then I'm out, and there is someone else who is buying, for example, right now, or who is buying my bag at 2 cents or 3 cents or 5 cents or whatever it was. And then they will be out one day too. Maybe it's 50 cents, maybe at $1, maybe at 2. And then probably 10 years from now, someone will buy for whatever it is, for $1 or 2 and get out at $10 and so on and so forth. So when you remove the staking component and yield components, and I also agree with ChrispyMan here that earlier is better, but it doesn't mean that if you are a little bit later than the early adopters to a great product, that there's nothing left for you here, right? Because it will, I might be dead by the time HEX is dead, or way before that. I might be out for whatever other reason, and there's probably thousands of people like me as well.
Sure.
Thousands of people like, we all have our lives. We move on with them in different directions. Sometimes, unfortunately, these lives end prematurely. So I'm not concerned about this at all, right? It's kind of the same like with Bitcoin and Ethereum right now. Would it be better if you got in very early? Of course. If you held until one of many all-time highs, it would be better. But is it okay? I'm not a big fan of Bitcoin. Probably none of us is, but there are people who love Bitcoin for whatever reason. I mean, if you're getting it now and then you will get out at whatever 70K again or 100K or whatever it's going to go, it's the same kind of philosophy here, right? Everyone gets in at some stage, and most of the people get out at some stage too, right? And that's how I would look like. I would look into it without the staking, which obviously is the main feature of HEX.
Sure. Well, hey, you're familiar, Mark, with how the overall predicted APY for like a Quattro Cinco's come down. So we get this a lot. The system average is something around 37-38%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we all see that. And it used to be at one point, right, if you did Quattro Cinco's, maybe that's pretty close to what you would be getting. But then we've seen kind of degradation of that coming down over time. And it's created a lot of controversy, right? Because, people say, well, what about the 38%? And then, but they're only making 27 or 28% or 30%, whatever the amount is. But so this is true that this has happened, right? And because it's based on staking activity, the more people stake, the lower the APY. But here's the mind-bending part. So what happens when, the payouts go up 15 or 20%? And so here's the thing. People maybe they take the FUD position. And they're like, I mean, the guy in the chat means well, probably, right? But it's like, I'm just not going to do it. These people are just going to be dumping. It doesn't make any sense to me because I'm not going to get enough yield. Or they're using maybe the fact that the number's 27% or 28% for a Quattro Cinco to decide to FUD themselves out to not participate. So what happens when all of a sudden that slingshots the other direction? And Quattro Cinco's suddenly, at least spot at the time that they're made, start looking like they're paying 45-50%. What happens then? So obviously this could be fun to watch the game go back and forth and how the adoption may change, because like I would love to see it. I think maybe it's too much, but that'd be too high of an APY if that's a possibility. But wouldn't that attract a whole bunch more people to stake? I would think.
I mean, people are going to learn their lesson eventually, perhaps with crypto. I mean, it's goes back to Mark's earlier point. Like when he tells people in his personal life, like, how many cycles are you going to wait? Like how many times are you going to see Bitcoin go up over and over again before you decide to participate?
I think we see it all the time, right? With everything crypto related. So when it's all going up and everyone is talking about it, obviously the crypto people and crypto holders are excited about it, but people who are outside of crypto are just screaming, we are all going to lose our money and it's a Ponzi, it will collapse and we all end up very bad, right? And then it goes all the way down. And we are really, really down, and we try to explain to them, this is the time to buy, so you can see the last thing I did 3 years ago or 4 years ago. It's like, no, look, it's going to zero. You're going to lose all your money, right? So I think it's a personal approach thing. I mean, if you're not happy when it's going down because you are scared to buy because you think it's going to zero, but then you're also scared to even look into crypto when someone actually bought it cheap and is selling it expensive, you still don't believe in it, then, I mean, there's no hope for you. I mean, at some stage, you have to change the mind, or it will be like we talked before, right? We will just do it for another 20 years, and we will all retire it in our 60s or 70s or whatever, and you will still be talking about this, right? So thinking if you could play your life differently, right? So.
Oh man, I do that all the time. I have to stop myself because I was one of those guys who read because I'm old enough that I was around when the white paper came out for Bitcoin. I read it when it came out, like the first month, you know, and I had the addresses to go, you know, the web address to go participate and click the exe, and I didn't do it. And so it
Really?
didn't. Oh yeah, but I mean, because you know, whatever. Same reasons everybody. The same reason nobody else. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody. The same reason other people who never made the decision didn't do it. And then I'm not going to invest this money and blah blah. You know, I'm not going to spend. I'm not going to, you know, risk my computer, and you know, I don't want to take that security risk. Somebody's going to hack you. You know, whatever. And then later it was, you know, you see the price is going up, and it's like, oh, I missed it this time. Right, this is what Mark's saying. You get, you know, so you missed it the first time, and it goes up, and then you're vindicated because look, it all went down. Look at that, it's back down. And you're vindicated because you made the right decision to not waste your money and participate, you know. And then, you know, all that stuff. And it was early and new when it was hard, you know, just like Hex is hard to a certain extent with the Ethereum chain, and you do your own wallets. I mean, it's kind of similar. I mean, it was hard to do Bitcoin after a while, right? Because besides the fact you had to go figure out, and yes, technically I should have been able to do that, but besides the fact you got to go figure out how to do it, right, and run a node or whatever you were going to be doing to mine. You know, when I finally decided I wanted to try to buy, like in 2015, I think it was, that I sent the email off to a guy who was selling them in Canada. You know, but I would have had to put $1,000 cash in an envelope and send it to him. I didn't do that. Right now, does it make sense that I probably maybe in retrospect it would have been a good decision, send him $1,000. He would have sent me a paper wallet. Right. I mean, you know. Anyways, yeah, lots of things happened. It was early, you know. It was early, but it didn't make sense for me to buy it a penny, and it certainly didn't make sense for me to buy it $1. You know, Bitcoin, and it didn't make sense for me to buy it at $100, but it made damn good sense to buy it at 2,000. So I just want to point out that kind of verifies for me my activity. Made a lot of sense to buy it at 1,000.
So. You eventually changed your mind about it and you went in. And also, you know, whoever is even remotely interested in the subject of crypto these days, I mean, now you have many more years and a few cycles of history, right? So if you're really interested in this in other ways than just telling your friends that you're going to lose your money, I mean, just open any ranking sites, which obviously we don't like for various reasons. So, I mean, I don't know, click on Bitcoin and put it, you know, all time chart and just see what happens. You look at these lines, right? Up, down, up, down, up, down. How many times, right? And basically, you know, make your decision based on that. It was much harder for you in the very beginning because there was no history. It could very well be a scam back then. You know, like if you were going into 2010, 2011, it could be like maybe not a scam, but sort of like, well, maybe it wouldn't pick up, right? There was too small group of people who actually believed in that. And we're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, just whatever. We played for it with it for a year, and now we don't care, and it will all die naturally because no one cares. Could have happened, but it didn't happen. But now you have this 13 years of history in crypto, and you cannot really justify yourself by, you know, that there is no way of looking back what happened, and there's no guarantee it will happen again in the future. But you know, that's the only thing we can learn from, right? We can learn from what we've seen so far. Not from what we think is going to happen in the next 20 years. This is just a projection. So the tools are out there, and these tools are actually not complicated, right? I mean, opening any chart of major cryptos on a major website, anyone should be able to actually find it, or you can actually send people there and say, look at this, look what happened. And now we are again down, and maybe we'll go up. And if anyone is really engaged in this kind of discussions of, you know, I heard about crypto, but I'm not really sure if I want to do it, and I'm scared and whatever. They're like, okay, what is a lot of money for you? Let's say it's $1,000 is a lot for you. Okay, put 100. Put 100 for the next cycle and just watch it. You know, you'll probably not be rich because of that, but maybe, you know, if you buy $100 of Hex today and it goes to whatever, you know, $3,000, let's say, in the next cycle, then you will understand what we are talking about, right? We'll be like, okay, next time when it dips, maybe we'll put $1,000 or $10,000 because you experience yourself on small amounts how it works, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with you on that about trying new things, and people should give things a shot, particularly with Hex. What's interesting is you do right now, you do like a 40-day stake, 35-day stake, you get a 1%, return on investment. I don't have very many places outside of crypto. In fact, I can't give you one. I'm just allowing that there might be a place where I can go count on 1% a month. It's just not there. It's just not there.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, you get to wonder just how many years of operation, of Hex will it take for someone who's said no, I'm not going to do it, to do it. Because they get that
Right.
that self custody control of yield.
Mm-hmm.
But we shall see. We shall see. But it would seem to me like people should come for it, man. It would make so much sense. But
I mean, another interesting aspect, as Hex is going through its ups and downs, and so is crypto. There's a lot of money on the sidelines, and I think in Hex, it's particularly interesting because there were a lot of people in Hex, such as myself and others, who experienced in real time Richard Hart calling the bottom, the last Bitcoin cycle when Hex
Mm-hmm.
launched, and then calling the top of the Bitcoin cycle. And now we're like waiting for Richard to call the bottom. And particularly for me, it's interesting because right now I'm having to make choices on how much do I want to delay gratification, because if I can save a few dollars here and there, that's more I can put into Hex, at the bottom of the market. And for me, I've already started dollar cost averaging in, but I'm just trying to imagine, like, how much money must be on the sidelines. And I know I heard a figure earlier today that was from a couple of weeks ago that said, there's still something like $120 billion of stable coins on the sidelines in crypto right now. And that's, that's a massive amount of money that is also, it seems, trying to time the market in one way or another. And so on one hand, you've got a short-term game that people are playing in all of crypto. And then in Hex, you've got this long-term game that's being played on top of all that. And then, everybody in the middle. And so I think when I think about the extremes of behavior, I like to say that everybody has a little bit of a trader inside of them, or somebody, everybody has some need to delay or to experience gratification. Otherwise, we'd all have starved to death because we would have been too extreme in our delaying gratification. So, it's not an all or none thing. And so for a lot of people, it'll be interesting to see new people who come along and buy the bottom, people who bought closer to the top and are trying to buy the bottom. And then there's going to be all of the hexagons who are up, who did sell some and have liquid stables and whatnot, who might be positioning themselves to buy more the cheaper it gets.
Very well said. Yeah.
So money on the sidelines is definitely a factor to think about here. Now, Mark, another thing I wanted to ask you about is what your perspective is on vampire attacks in the Hex community.
That's interesting. That's a good one. Well, I've seen a few things happening like this, right? I don't know if we should be, mentioning the names or not on your show. I'm not surprised that it's happening, right? Obviously, when people see a good crypto, when they see a good community, a strong one, a big one, a growing one, then they will try to capitalize on it somehow, right? And vampire attack is one of the ways of doing it. It's a shortcut in a way. It's if you consider that crypto is a business and nothing else than that, and if you create a new coin or a new project, product, whatever, and you're trying to to make it count in whatever ways. I guess there are two ways of doing it, right? One way is you work hard and smart and you use all your knowledge and you have a great team who is doing hopefully all the right things to make it happen. And the other way is looking for shortcuts, right? So if you don't have a community or you don't have a following which would go with you to that new product, especially in crypto, if you want to do the shortcut, that's what you do. That's what you do. That's when you perform a vampire attack. I think it's to use kind words. It's ethically wrong in a way. I think using shortcuts is like this. Just the name vampire attack already has a negative connotation, and I don't think it's good. Also, having worked in all kinds of businesses for the last 20 years or so, I can tell you I don't believe in shortcuts. I don't think in the long term it works well, right? I think you can't really build anything successful if you just try to, in this particular example, what, I'm not going to build any community. I'm just going to leech to another one and get as many users as I can for my project. It backfires sooner or later, maybe because of that, maybe because of something else. But if this is your general attitude that you will be looking for shortcuts, how you can, leverage other people, other communities, other businesses, other people's ideas, I think, unless you're a genius, it will eventually backfire this way or another. So I'm not a fan of it. I don't like seeing it. And it's not only about hacks and vampire attacks on our community. It's much as general philosophy, either build something yourself and ask for help by all means and get people involved in some ways, but not necessarily in a way, pretend someone you are not, take all the users or some of the users with you and run like you never cared about these people, because people remember. You will meet them somewhere later in some other projects, maybe in this project, and it's not going to do well as well. So I'm against vampire attacks, in short.
I think being able to differentiate, like it sounds like you are, on adding some new tech or taking a genius approach is different when it comes to let's say PulseChain. I think the negative connotation of vampire attack is more kind of coming maybe from let's say Sushi Swap is a famous vampire attack on Uniswap, and it's kind of interesting to me that neither one of those protocols, in my opinion, really got it right, because they didn't build in the fee or the token into the actual protocol itself, whereas PulseX will do that. And so you see an example of duh, that's an improvement, and it's not just a copy, but it's an improvement. And that makes it, in my opinion, just a superior offering, a superior technology, a leap forward compared to just copy and pasting. And I think that the whole copy and paste thing of PulseChain is just that's like a total meme to me. It's not just a copy paste. But certainly, yeah, I think if that's if somebody is trying to copy Hex or trying to copy a component of Hex and then thinking that their version is going to be better. It's somewhat of a fool's errand in so far what I've seen from different places, because it seems like no matter what road you go down, you're going to end up realizing that a lot of the design decisions that Richard made in Hex actually were in fact very well thought out. There's a reason why I guess it took 2 years to develop Hex, and it'd be it's we've seen some things that are exact copies of Hex, I think, and then some things that just replicate some of the elements, and either way you go, it seems like it hasn't been too successful compared with, I would imagine, PulseX being highly successful and probably seen in a positive light. I mean, PulseChain reducing fees, giving people the right incentive, and all that good kind of stuff is interesting. But I find just the topic is fascinating, and I love to hear your guys' thoughts about how it's bad for people to try to copy Hex, and then how is it good for PulseChain to copy Ethereum. What's up, K4K? Good to see you there. Thanks for popping in.
Yeah, that is
Crispy. What do you think?
That is kind of an interesting topic, isn't it? Because it does seem like they're at odds, right? But just avoiding the obvious, right? I think the stance on Hex is this. I mean, my feeling on it, and some of what Richard has said in the past is this: it works the way we want it to work already, and it works well. And I know that there can be some people who have a different opinion about this, but why try to do something different if it already is working well? Right? And so from that perspective and that kind of thought, you could say it's perfect as it is, right? And so if it's already perfect, then there's no improvement to be made. So then shouldn't we be more focused on, directing all of our energy at what we want and what we like, right? So that's kind of like that argument, right? And in my mind, which kind of sets us up for that maximal-ish kind of discussion, right? Of why do you only care about your coin and your token and blah, 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 right? Because obviously we're involved in it, that we want it to do well, and that's where our attention should be. And so you kind of like asked two questions. You asked that, and you also talked about vampire attacks. And so I think technically anything takes our attention off of Hex, is drawing energy away from Hex, right? So that would be maybe you call that a vampire attack if it's something that's specifically designed to do that, by either grabbing our community or our attention or our fiat, right? Or our crypto, right, to do things. Now the PulseX things is like a whole different thing, And so when I started thinking about Pulse and Hex, much like I had to, and I think maybe Mark's mentioned a couple things already based on his experience. This might resonate well with you, Mark. When you're in business and you have a business model, you don't necessarily only have one business model. And so what does that mean? What I mean by that is sometimes you have different things going on within your business that you're servicing customers. And so maybe you call it a line, you call it, a category, maybe you call it a division, right? But there's different business models. There's a business model of Hex, and there's also the business model of PulseX, right? Because you're going to do things differently. You have to do things differently with them. And it comes back to the origin, what the goals are, for those platforms and all the rest. Now, of course, I feel like the reason we're going to Pulse is not, just because somebody wanted to create something cool. Well, that's in fact what's going to happen. It's to ensure that our community has a platform to operate on that doesn't cost, $200 to make a transaction to send something back and forth.
Yeah.
And so that being the case, it kind of changes the rules. And I get it doesn't fit in the Max box anymore, the whole Maxi idea. And so, yes, you have to some extent, change. And not everybody, but I mean, it'd be silly to launch a chain and say nobody can come work on this chain. That'd be silly, right? You're not going to go do that. And it seems kind of silly to try to freeze anybody out or lock anybody out. And so, yeah, we've had some storming and norming as this whole idea of PulseChain and PulseX has come about. And as individuals, we've had to deal with that. And that's what I mean by having kind of like a little bit of business model. I mean, how can I be a maxi of HEX and also believe that PulseX is okay? And I'm kind of cutting to the chase. I'm not going through and describing all the arguments people make about why you should never copy HEX and blah blah blah. But here we are copying ETH, right? And here we are implementing pieces of stuff. I say we. I'm not involved in the team, but I mean, you know what I mean, as a community. And so, yeah, it creates this kind of like weird situation where others coming in and say that's pretty hypocritical. But they need to be separate. In my mind, anyways, for me to be able to reconcile that two things can be true at one time, and so yeah, I mean I think that gets to the extent that I understood what you were asking about. That's where I'm headed with that thinking and why that needs to be that way. Now, the norming and the storming and the norming that's going on, the storming is, all you guys, you only care about HEX and you won't help us. Well, that's kind of going to go away, right? Why is that going to go away? Because you know what? The people who want to build and need to build on Pulse, they don't need HEX to do that. No. I mean, and maybe perhaps that's what we get after every time somebody says, you never hear Vitalik talking about tokens, right? Maybe that's what they mean, because he's worried about the system being up and running, not worried about what individual tokens are doing. And anyways, just my off the cuff response. I haven't prepared an answer for that question, but yeah, I mean, and people are going to do their own work. They're going to build their own tokens. They're going to build their own communities. And whoever said all communities have to be like completely integrated? Nobody, right? Because we know that's not human nature anyways.
Yeah, and it's certainly interesting to see, even from afar, or to just filter through other people, like how other stuff is doing, and it's like, okay, cool. I'm glad I didn't get into
that. Yeah. And then there's others where you're like, wow, I guess I missed that one.
Yeah, sure. So.
Sorry for the long-winded answer, but
yeah, no, I mean that's all valuable commentary. Thank you. Hexivore is asking what the topics have been so far. We have an author with us who has written the third book on Hex and also goes into PulseChain as well. And so we've been interviewing him. He's been an amazing guest. And we talked about the PulseChain update right around minute 38 or 40 is when I threw something up on the screen that you can look for, and that's how you know where to rewind to for that. But this, as usual, this entire episode has been a good listen, and we've seen we've seen some big names in the audience like K4K and Abit and many others. So. Definitely check it out. And then Matt in Bali's using us as a bedtime story. So quick, somebody make up something good, But overall, I mean, we also had a part in the stream today where ChrispyMan gave an update on how TShares are paying out and how the statistics are looking at hexfire.io. And then also around the time that we did the PulseChain update, I gave an update on Time Pays Me, which allows you to time lock any ERC or PRC20 for up to 55 years, coming soon, maybe in the next 3 weeks. No incentive. There you go. The incentive is built in to having the superpower of being able to hold longer than normal. So yeah, had some great commentary today, and a great audience as usual. I mean, I was just checking in on YouTube to see if there's any good Hex content, and I keep running into different crypto influencers who are not getting the same views that they normally do. So it's refreshing to see people are staying true here. And then of course I'm always on the hunt for new people who are doing streams or just people who are consistently performing. And I have to say, Crypto 7 has been putting out strong content lately that's come up in my feed. So has Crypto Coffee and Furu Finance are some of the ones that I've been watching.
I've been slacking like usual. I can make this stream with you because you set it up. That's my slackerism.
And then what else have I come across lately? So I listened to the full 4 hours of Senate Finance Committee. That was from last week. So I had seen part of the 4 hours last week when we streamed on Tuesday, but not all of it. That was the John Ray, is that it? The John Ray interview before Congress. And then of course, and I mean, that was really good stuff because you get to see all these different senators, and some of them love crypto, some of them hate it, and they've all prepared their 5-minute statement. So if you want to look into the John Ray hearing, he's the guy who got sent in to clean up FTX. It's to me, it's more informative than the BitBoy, just kind of entertaining, which that's cool too. I mean, we need different forms of entertainment and knowledge and everything. So BitBoy has still been covering Sam Bankman-Fried's arrest down in the Bahamas and him being dragged into court and put back in this horrible prison and everything. He's been covering that, but the Senate Finance hearing was super interesting. And then there was also another hearing, like a U.S. hearing. Maybe it was the House or something was interviewing people, and that's where there was the panel of 4 different experts that were testifying. I don't think it was the same committee. I don't think it was the Senate Finance Committee, but that's the one where you got to see clips from Kevin O'Leary. Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank and promoting FTX. And he was somewhat defending crypto with, I think, a couple professors. There were 3 other people on the panel. Another guy who was against crypto, and then there was a woman who was for crypto and a woman who was against crypto. And so that was really interesting. And then Vitalik did a stream with the bankless guys who are paid shills. So that was just kind of a little bit cringe to watch them put their advertisements for who knows, NFTs or some crummy thing right next to Vitalik's face. That was kind of interesting. I don't see that happening to Richard Hart these days. And certainly I would never do something like that. Like, I'm talking like, like a fifth of the screen was dedicated to ads, like the whole time Vitalik was on stream. So pretty amusing to me to watch. Matt, yes, Richard will be on the channel here on January 9th on the evening, and there's a landing page set up for that already. You can go to hexconference.com to get a shortcut to the info there. So yeah, lots of great streams. Lots of people sticking around in the Hex community, so that's really great. Well, we've had a great show here, and I want to thank you guys for being available and giving your great commentary. Maybe can we hear from both of you where people can go to find you before we sign off here?
Yeah, for me, it's hexfire.io. Best place to find me.
Awesome.
For me, secondcryptorevolution.com. That's the website of the book, and you can find ways of contacting me there. You have some social media links and an email address as well, so feel free to use this one. That's the shortest, easiest way to connect on various platforms.
I'm going to add that to the stream here so people find it easier to click on it.
I see it.
Hexfire.io. Secondcryptorevolution.com. Excellent. And then for me, it's allmylinks.com/allin. And yeah, I'll continue streaming every Tuesday and Thursday night here, as I have for 108 weeks now, I think. Everybody head over to amazon.com and pick up your copy of Second Crypto Revolution by Mark Wilde. Brilliant. I very beautiful design too on the artwork.
Thank you.
I want a boat, man. I want a yacht.
Next bull market.
Yeah, one where I can drive my Lambo.
And
these pictures are real from somewhere, right? So basically, they must exist.
That's crazy.
They must exist.
That's crazy, right?
Well, it seems like Huddle Dog has figured out a way to make his dreams come true, and that's by working in the middle of the bear market to accumulate more crypto. It seems so. Until next time, my friends, stake wisely and peace out.
Peace.
Bye.